In August of 2018, I wrote a psychological analysis of God of War. And it turns out that that particular game went on to win Game of the Year for 2018 in December. So I'm gonna show you guys that video and have the AI read it to you because it's a very long post, and I think it's just better if you can read it yourself or shut off the audio if you don't want to hear that, as opposed to me just reading it to you. I'm going to give you another version, a summarized version right now. Just now it is what? April 4th, April 3rd, April 4th, 2019. Okay, so we are almost halfway into 2019. E3 is coming. We're getting excited for E3. It's coming up. Sony's not going to be there for some reason. Not sure why. Hopefully they got the PS5 up their sleeve, but even if they do, anyway, that's neither here nor there. I wish they would come. I hope they come back. Having the three unified up on stage would be the best. Anyway, this is an open letter, an open psychological analysis to any company out there, to all developers. And this is an analysis of video games in combat, but more specifically God of War, and how you can use what I'm going to say and expand it to almost any type of game, because I'm going to use examples from multiple sources. So basically, if you want to leave right now and not listen to any of this, if there's one point I would like you to take home, that I would like to drive home with you, that is less is more. That's it, 3 words. Less is more. In today's world, in 2019 currently, we have an influx and overabundance of these huge games, these open world games, 1,000 players, 1,000,000 players, 64 players, 100 players, these massive maps, massive worlds for single player games as well, where people just get lost, and they're barren. We have these no man's skies with millions of planets that you can go to, billions of planets, however many, but these games feel hollow. They feel hollow. When you don't have a lot of something, it becomes more precious. When you only have 1 or 2 or 3 or a few of something, you care about it much more than if you have hundreds or thousands, etc., etc. The higher the number, the less you care. In inverse proportion. That's not good. I feel it as soon as I step into an open world. I look around at the trees and stuff, and there's no significance to anything. Okay? So, one of my favorite games ever, this game called Nioh. It's very similar to Dark Souls and Bloodborne, and now Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, Sekiro. These games, not Sekiro, but Nioh, not so much Bloodborne, but Dark Souls, they have too many things, too many weapons, too many items, too many of all types of things. They're oversaturated. Does that make sense? So when you pick up a sword, you pick up any kind of weapon, you immediately know, hey, there's going to be something else, probably in the next 5 minutes, that's going to be a little bit higher than the sword. I'm going to destroy it and not use it, not care about it. So that makes every little bit of loot that you pick up feel useless almost. You see what I'm saying? As you're going around, you slay an enemy, and then it just feels useless to pick up whatever you get, because you know that, if it's any kind of weapon or item, there's going to be something better very soon. There's no attachment, there's no emotional attachment or anything to it. And you get rid of it and you trash it, or you discard it, or you dismantle it as soon as you get the chance. Let's compare and contrast that to the highest rated game of all time, and my personal favorite, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Was it open world? No. How many dungeons did it have? 5? Okay, maybe 8, if you count a couple, little ones, mini ones. A little bit. None of this, even Breath of the Wild, 120, mini dungeons. No, we don't need that. We need we need quality over quantity. That's another one. Less is more. Another one is quality over quantity, right? That's it. That's all you need to know. That's all I'm going to be saying in all of this. When you only have a few of something, we will care about it so much more. How many swords were in Ocarina of Time? I don't know, 3, 4, 5, right? Very few. So every single one meant something to you. You know? You had the little wooden sword, then you had the little knife that you bought. And then you got the Blade of Evil's Bane. Then you could get the Goron sword. And we know what each one looks like, what they do. How about the shields? How many shields are in Dark Souls? You know, hundreds. You don't care about almost any of them. There's only a few that's like, oh yeah, it's like good. But in Zelda, there's only, I think, 3. Right? The Deku Shield, the Hylian Shield, and the Mirror Shield. And you knew what they each did. They were awesome. I love the Mirror Shield. God, I want that to come back so bad. Okay? You know, you had the hover boots and the iron boots. 2 boots. 3 boots if you count the normal ones. But they were amazing. Everybody knows what they are. They're iconic. They are burned into our memories forever. How about the tunics? The blue tunic. Everybody knows what that does. When you see it, your brain triggers immediately. Your memory, the consolidation is there. Immediately, you know exactly what it does. It's the blue one. You wore it in the water temple. Helps you breathe underwater. You see the red one, you know exactly what it does. But in Neo, Dark Souls, all these other games, these open world, everything. I'm sorry to just talk about them. They're like the best in my opinion of these games without not open that have so much, you know, loot. That's what I mean. Loot, open world, all the stuff. There's too much of anything. That's what I'm trying to get at. These games just have too much. Sekiro really narrowed it down, and they did well. I think they narrowed it down too much though. It's too small. But that's for another time. The combat though, oh my god, the combat in that game. But anyway, you know, there's only a few items in Zelda, but when you got one, when you used one, it was amazing. It was amazing. You know? And you remember it forever. We all know what the hookshot does. As soon as I say that, you know exactly what it is, what it looks like, what it sounds like, and its function. But if I just said some random item from another game, you probably have no idea. So, with God of War, as you're gonna see, I talk about, you know, momentum combat, and this I think should permeate into all games. And Sekiro does it pretty well, where it's like a rhythm, it's like a dance. So to begin, I guess, when you approach any enemy in any video game that you've ever played, just think about any opponent. When you approach them, when you walk into a room, they walk into the room, whatever, you walk outside, when you guys encounter one another, you see them, right? If you were the strongest character ever in any game or any lore, what is the quickest way that you could destroy this enemy? You would just literally have them disappear right away, or they would die as soon as they got close to you, correct? That would be the most overpowered or OP character ever, right? As soon as you get near an opponent, they die without you doing anything, right? And everybody wants to be powerful in games. So tell me, my friends, tell me, listener, tell me, companies, please, developers, publishers, do you think that would make for a good game? If you just walked around, if you said the character literally just walk forward, and every enemy, the final boss, all the bad characters, everyone just died instantly? No. That wouldn't be fun at all. Nobody would buy that game. It'd be terrible. You see what I'm saying? That's the most overpowered you can make it, because the goal of any situation, when you approach an enemy, the goal is to either kill them, you know, get them out of your way, move them in some way, interact with them. You see what I'm saying? And the time, the amount of time that you spend with the opponent is so crucial. So with little enemies, like cannon fodder enemies, you would only interact with them for how long? Seconds, very quickly, right? You would dismantle them, take them out quickly. Then there's mid-tier enemies where you would spend more time with them because they have higher health bars, more moves, they do more damage to you. And then you have the bosses, right? And it's all relative to time. That's what a lot of this stuff is about. And you guys, the ones I'm talking to specifically, you know who you are. Team Ninja, FromSoft, Naughty Dog, Irrational, Ken Levine. Gosh, I miss you. Nintendo, you know, Sony proper, Microsoft, Phil Spencer, all those, everybody. So many people I'm missing. Now I'm gonna feel bad as soon as I watch this back. I'm gonna feel bad about all the companies. Bethesda, id Software. Who else we got here? Oh my gosh, Tango Gameworks, Evil Within, of course. The Resident Evil, Capcom. Everybody. I'm talking to everyone. With combat, it needs to be a balance of you walking in the room and the enemy dying instantly, and that's the most overpowered you could ever be, and the most underpowered you could ever be, in my opinion, is something like an Outlast, where you do not have a weapon. You literally have no way to kill or damage the things that are your enemies, the things that are hunting you, trying to kill you. And that is fun in its own way for a horror aspect, right? Definitely love that in the horror way. Oh, you can totally lean into that. But speaking on God of War, and if Bioshock ever comes back, oh god, 2K, get Ken back, get him back. When you're leaning on that way, you want to feel like a god, right? You want the combat to be more powerful, much more powerful when you come across an enemy. Instead of making the player feel underpowered, you would want the player to feel empowered, right? And eventually, if they got good enough, that's where the skill gap comes in, skill floors and skill ceilings. And I hope you guys really study that, really look into that, and talk to your best and worst players about it to understand where the floors and where the ceilings are, how bad you can be, yet still make it through a game. That's the floor, right? Skill floor, and the skill ceiling is how good can anyone get at this game, In Pong, the skill ceiling is not too high. You can literally push the button up or down at for intervals of a second at most, right? Which is very skillful, don't get me wrong, but compared to other things like God of War, the skill ceiling is just, there's no question. There's so many button inputs for God of War versus up or down, correct? So with combat, you want to find out what kind of game you're trying to make, right? No matter what it is, and where it lands on that spectrum of 0 damage, of just approaching an enemy, and them only killing you in like 1 or 2 hits, and you not being able to swing or do anything to them. That's the worst you could be, like the least powered you can be, and I think that works. And you can even have that work in God of War or something at certain points, right? At the beginning of the game, midway through or something, if your character goes through some terrible trauma, loses their powers in some way. You can definitely have those aspects, but not for too long if you're doing a God of War style game, because the players are there to feel that power. So if you are going to take it, it has to be for a short period that they can get it back, right? Rather quickly. But you have to figure out what kind of game you're making and where you want to have it on that spectrum. Okay, so then with momentum, what I was trying to get at is, once again, you will see this, is as you're moving, as you swing, let's say with Kratos' axe, as you swing, as he's completing the animation, you have to have different moves for the player's different inputs. I've never seen any game that does this, where if you just button mash, it'll do a certain, combo, versus if you actually time your presses, like 1, 2, 3, 4, he'll do different swings, different combos with that. And I think you would have to do it at the end of the animation. So as he's like swinging, as his axe is coming back or whatever, at the end of the swing, at that very apex of that momentum, at the very point the axe stops moving, kind of glows or glints for a second, that's when you would press it again. You would press the attack again, and then you would swing it, coming back and catch up more momentum and get faster and faster and faster. And then you could dodge and jump and this, that, and that, and that. And you could see how the combat could get faster and faster. And as you're doing this, you can build up your rage or whatever and do more damage to your opponents, right? And you can do more damage to the enemy that you're fighting, and you can move quicker and quicker. So instead, it's kind of, I like it to think of it as kind of like a play on slowing down time. So many games do this time slowing, and it's great. I love, who doesn't love slowing down time during any combat? It's always a good time. And I think actually God of War, you guys have done it spectacularly, where the amount of time and when you have to, how you trigger is perfect, where you have to dodge right at the correct moment. Oh, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. I have the whole game in my playlist, everything, all the bosses, all the Valkyries on hardest mode. Oh, no HUD. Oh, it's so good. I gotta play it again. I'm like itching to play it again. Oh God. Okay, where was I? With the momentum, you get faster and faster as you're swinging, right? So the skill ceiling could be insane if you're like swing, 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 shield bash, boom, runic, boom. And like if you could string those together, there should be certain combos that trigger when you have the certain button inputs at particular times. And then if a player does decide, because this is where the skill floor comes in, if they do decide to just button mash, which will be probably, I don't know, 20-30%, I don't know what the stats are with people. I would guess 20, like a third of the players would probably be button mashers, where they would just press, like, attack. And you could have combos for that, so it would cancel what you were doing. It would cancel the badass awesome combo for a cool combo, for a good combo, right? For the skill floor, which is still cool. It has to be sweet, right? Of course it's gonna be sweet, but you have to have that differential of skill and player base, where people can have that skill ceiling, and if they do, it becomes flashier, he moves faster, he hits harder, there's more particle effects, right? Just looks more beautiful, like Devil May Cry. I gotta get that Devil May Cry 5, gotta play that. I played the demo. Oh my god, it's so good. The demo's so good. So yeah, as you like play better, that game, kind of the beat comes in more, right? It's kind of the same thing. It's funny how that happened, and I wrote all of this back in August before these games came out, and Sekiro does it too. With the combat, I said something about, and you'll see it in the article, where having like different shield stances, like high, medium, or low, and you could have the attacks come that way, right? Kind of like Sekiro does, where they do jabs, swings, or sweeps, or whatever at you, and jumps. And you have to react in certain ways in order to dodge, and if you don't react a certain way, you get damaged. And I love that aspect. So there should be some things that we have to swing, some things we have to, dodge, some things we have to roll. And if you guys add jump, I said, that's opening the Pandora's box. Guys, everybody, for any game, but specifically God of War, if you add jump into your game, you are opening Pandora's box. Because if you add jump, that you are adding the vertical axis into your combat. I think it's going to take, if you do decide to do that, I hope you decide to take at least another year of development, because the potential with jumping is absurd. It's absurd. I'm not going to be mad if you don't do it in the next one. I'm not going to be mad, but if you decide to go down that road, I think you should tell the community, and just be like, guys, we have to take another 6 months or a year to develop this, because the combos that you could do with Atreus and you, jumping around, flying around, jumping off walls, flipping, throwing things into wall, throwing your axe into the wall, and then jumping up, grabbing the axe, it could be absurd at the things you could do with jumping. So I just really caution you and implore you to, if you do consider it, I'll be all for it, but just give it the time it needs to develop. Don't rush that. Because the jumps don't just be like, oh yeah, he can jump over a ledge now. Boop. No, no. You gotta add it. No, just no. Okay. Let's see what else. I'm trying to think about the article. I should. You know what I'll do? I will pull it up actually. Let me pull it up on my other thing here. We'll get it going. Let's see, real quick off the top of my head, with the armor, you should only have a couple armors, and you guys did really well with that, but I think you could add in boots, and have each one do only a specific thing. Like, you can have multiple perks on each one, but have them only cater to certain things. So like arms, maybe have like attacks and magic. That's like the magic stats. And then like chests are only about defensive buffs. Like, it's all about defense. So when you wear a certain chest, it's just some kind of defensive buff. When you get boots, I think you should add boots, because I don't think you didn't have boots. You just had the chest and the waist. Please add boots. Boots are badass. Imagine badass Kratos boots with like spikes, with like glowing stuff, with like particles coming off of them. It's like hover boots. Oh god, boots, and then have the boots affect your movement, right? Solely about movement. Slower, faster, you hit harder, you run faster, you jump higher, things like that. Lets you dodge quicker, roll further. Everything about the boot should be about movement, right? Everything should make sense. It just makes sense to the player as they come up to, and this, like I said, this video goes for all games. When a player approaches it, everything should be so intuitive. Here's something I didn't write in it, and this is actually, I'm so excited that I remembered this right now. I wanted to talk about this. please, 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 all developers, guys, add items. Please add items that the player can wear, that they wear. Okay, jewelry, necklaces, bracelets, earrings, things like that. And of course the armors, obviously, but other little things like trinkets, right? Things that have significance. You put it in the lore. You put it in the story. Like, I was thinking about a necklace with different beads and different colors. Imagine, like, different stones. And as you play the game, Kratos or whoever it is, Ellie, Joel, Last of Us, Bioshock, whoever, who cares? They add more beads, more things to the necklace as they go, more stones, more colors, you know? And the player gets certain buffs with these beads as the necklace grows. And players will go insane over this kind of stuff. You guys don't understand how much we love these little psychological things. You put them in there, we will go nuts. We will draw them, we will make paintings, cosplay. You can make food, candies, you can make toys out of all this stuff. You know, little Kratos axe, you make blades of chaos, people buy that thing, you know? These things are sentimental, they mean things to our hearts and our minds. So you add, you know, necklaces, bracelets, things that have significance in the story and the lore, whatever. Freya, when hopefully she comes back to the light, you know, give us some cool things. And as we wear the bracelet, it glows different colors, or it starts to glow different colors as we beat certain bosses. It unlocks certain powers as we experience the memories of our ancestors. You know, whatever. You can put all this stuff and put it into meaningful objects into the game that the player can wear. And as they wear it, it signifies different parts of the story, and it makes the player look super badass. So in the beginning, they're just a scrub, you know, no matter what they are, they look like nothing, you know, they have no shirt, no clothes, right? Like Dark Souls Neo, you just spawn in with like pants on, and that's it. Zelda, all you have is pants on, you know, underwear. And then at the end of the game, you should be totally decked out with armor and stuff that absolutely means everything to you, means so much to you, as opposed to, you know, like, there could be a lot of diversity, like thousands of builds because of the chests and stuff and different combinations with the perks I'm talking about, but it shouldn't be millions of combinations and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's too much. So at the end, someone, not even at the end, midway through, if someone saw a picture, they could say, oh, Kratos doesn't have the bracelet yet. You know what I mean? That's before that level. It's before the halfway point. Then it's like, oh, he has the necklace now. That means he's about, 3/4 of the way through the game. That's the point, you know, where you fought the magical dragon that, you know, shoots ice. You see what I'm saying? These items will signify moments to the player. You know what I mean? So when I see the mirror shield on somebody's back in Ocarina of Time, I'm like, oh man, they just recently went to the Spirit Temple, like they got it from the Spirit Temple. That's badass. I love that temple. You know, you have to be a kid and go back to it in time and be an adult. Just memories. We attach ourselves to these things, as opposed to just like, oh, okay. And when you get the items, oh my god, it's another thing. When you get the items, it's all the more, just so crucial. So when you kill a little enemy, when you kill enemies, that should be like, yeah, okay, you can get gold, money, whatever, XP to unlock moves and perks, like basic ones. But when it comes to badass things that are just awesome in any game, you should always attach it to a milestone, okay? You should always attach it to a very incredible event, whether it be story-wise, boss-wise, you know, etc., things like that. Don't just have the player kill a random little enemy and then the greatest sword or the greatest weapon of all time just falls out of it. No. You gotta have it in a temple sealed away, right? You know, locked behind 3 sacred stones, where you have to go on a whole mission to just, you know, even open the door to begin the trial to find the item. You see what I'm saying? So every time the player gets a new the new boots, they should be the most sacred boots from the giants up north, you know, or the next boots he gets, or the boots of Thor, of what's his name, Odin's servants, right? Odin's servants boots, you know, make them super fast, so you can, I don't know, whatever. You see what I'm saying? And then you feed Odin, you get the Odin boots, right? The best ones in the game, where you can jump, you know, it just changes everything. It would be amazing. All right, so hold on, I had the thing here. So yeah, just tie events to items and weapons. Don't just have, you know, a million weapons and then nobody cares about them then, you know? Like, play these games and I kill an enemy, a million items drop, I'm like, oh great, this means nothing to me. Just have it be XP and stuff like that, and like health. But you can definitely add other things in there, like crafting materials, right? You can add that in too, you know, into enemies, and that way that'll incentivize players to go find certain enemies and kill them if they need to find certain materials, right? Only this kind of giant will drop the giant stone that you need to form the axe of the gods, whatever. So okay, here we go. So yeah. My God, this is like a lecture. It really is. I could go forever. There's so much more in my head too. So just anything I wanted to bring up here. I'm just gonna scroll through this real quick. Make them disappear. Yeah. So you gotta find out exactly. You gotta find out where this where your game lies in that mantra of, are we making the player not powerful and giving them nothing like Outlast, or too powerful like, I don't know of a game where it's like too powerful, but we just have too much stuff going on, where there's no challenge left. You know what I'm saying? Well, you know what? I think it's probably better you guys just go through it. I'll just let the AI read it to you, and that'll be that. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I love all your games. I'm going to put as many developers as I can attached to this, because I just want everyone to see it. Comment, everybody, critique, whatever. Let's just keep the discussion going. That's the point. So that we can grow, so everyone can grow and make better games, better art, Don't let microtransactions and these business practices taint the purity that is in your hearts. Just make a pure game. I mean, look what God of War does. No DLC, no microtransactions, nothing. It wins Game of the Year 2018. It beats Red Dead Redemption 2, which everybody was sure, I was sure it was gonna win, but I thought God of War deserved it. It was a Sony exclusive, Red Dead's all over the place. Sony, PlayStation, PC. I don't know about PC, but Sony and Xbox, So I didn't think it had a chance, but it did, and it won, and it deserved it. So yeah, you'll see everything in there, guys, and I hope the AI reads it and you enjoy. And that's about it. Keep making great games. Keep doing what you guys do. Guys, ladies, gentlemen, everybody, people, humans, dogs, whoever helps, animals, whoever helps make the games, whoever you are, whatever you identify as. I love all you guys. I love all of you. And keep making great stuff, and don't let it become tainted by greed, because we won't feel good about it, neither will you. Alright, take care. I can't wait for your next creations, E3s in a couple months. Can't wait to see all you guys there. I'm gonna be cheering you on from here, on the internet. Okay, comment, like, let's get the conversation going. Keep the combat flowing. Alright? It's all about speed, momentum, fluidity. Take care. Nope. I lied. It's not over. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about the combat, about the actual movement, because this is probably going to be a little bit hard to try to read or hear and understand, so I'll try to give a little more explanation. So, imagine if you're running up to an opponent, you're running up to an opponent, and there's one behind you, chasing you, right? And if you're trying to change direction quickly, in life, and we call that a pivot, right? So you plant 1 foot forward, you dig into the ground, you lean forward for a second, and then you push off of that foot in the opposite direction, pushing you backwards, right? And then you turn around and head in whatever direction. So in the game, that should be a moment every single time that you do that in God of War. That can be a moment of where his boot or his axe or whatever, any of it just glows for just a split second, half of a second, quarter second, where it just glows for that moment. If you attack at that exact moment, then he will reverse direction, if you pull back on the thumbstick, and he will swing in a very strong way with a cool combo or cool move, and thus start the combinations. And I don't even know if I capitalized it on the last video, actually, the last audio clip, where I was saying, it's so cool that you do the slow motions, but I want to reverse time in the other way. Whereas a lot of games do slow motion abilities, which are fantastic, but I propose, I don't know if other games have done this, but I propose a speed up mechanic where the enemies stay the same speed, but if you can consecutively hit those combos and keep the flow moving and moving, the game will get faster on your end. Then the character will move quicker and the combos will get quicker. And therefore, it'll kind of seem to the player like it is in slow motion. I've noticed this a little bit in Nioh and recently in Sekiro, where as I'm fighting an opponent or a boss and getting my butt kicked for hours, I notice that as I fight, I promise you, eventually it starts to seem ever so slightly like the character, like my opponent, is moving in slow motion, like they're moving a little bit slower than before. And all that is my brain that is processing their movements and their fight patterns, right? I'm adapting to them. So it no longer seems kind of, juddery. So the same thing would happen, and I hypothesize in the other direction, where if I had the ability to fight quicker and quicker, I think that would give the illusion to people, to really, really skilled players, that the enemies are moving slower. Like you'd be doing your combos and you'd be doing it so quick, it would start to appear to you, man, these enemies aren't moving that fast. And that would be the most, I don't know how much more satisfying you can get as far as being a god, that would just be amazing. I think just move quicker and quicker, as long as you can keep the combos up and the strings up, like not getting hit or whatever. I don't know what the parameters is. I think that's a pretty good one, like not getting hit. As long as you can not get hit and keep the destruction up, dodging, rolling, attacking, it just gets quicker and quicker, and your pace gets quicker and you get stronger. So enemies eventually become like one shots, so you can just like boom, 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 dodge, boom, boom, and you're just like one shotting like everything, blast, runic slam, and everything's just getting obliterated as long as you can keep the pace. Yeah. So things like that, just with carrying your momentum, right? If you're running in one direction, you can, then shoulder charge, whatever. Slide, of course. I have that in the notes. But if you want to pivot, you should be able to, right? And then you just keep that momentum flowing and change direction. All right, guys. This should be it, unless I think of more stuff. See you.
God of War Psychological Analysis. August 2018. Bullet points not in any particular order. Combat Analysis. It must first be understood that the goal of combat is to make an enemy die, disappear, or go away. This is true of any game that has combat. So if we wanted to make the most powerful video game character ever, combat would simply be looking at an opponent, pressing X, and having the opponent die, quite literally thinking them out of existence. However, this would not be fun. Combat is fun when we are allowed to play or dance with our opponents over a certain period of time, usually seconds to minutes, while making use of a variety of different tools at our disposal. Too short and it's unsatisfying. Too long of a fight becomes boring and repetitive. The balancing act is crucial. This sense of autonomy is unmatched when compared to the blink and they die method. Games have figured that out long ago. One-shotting everything you come across with the same technique gets old fast. Variation in speed and power is what hooks the human brain. It draws us in, the power curve. The fantasy. The ability to start small and slow, then grow large and fast and powerful. It's no coincidence that some of the most celebrated games of all time adhere to this mantra religiously. There must be variation in combat to allow growth and satisfaction for the player. God of War 2018 did a great job, but there exists much room for improvement in every regard to combat. Future. Momentum-based combat. Combat can be expanded upon in many ways. R1 plus R2, R1 then R2, R2 then R1. Different timing buttons can result in more moves. These are just a few examples. The ability to slide should be added. Attacking while sliding would be extremely satisfying. This can be mapped to the sprint button. Imagine Kratos sliding past a group and slicing their legs as he kicks up the snow with his feet. This would play well into the momentum-based combat I am proposing. Add the ability to vault and carry sprint momentum. Running needs more of an acceleration feeling going from 0 to max sprint. Add ability where Kratos literally moves faster the more moves he lands. Add jump. If you do this, you open Pandora's box. LOL, my estimate would be at least 1 extra year of game development if you add jump into the next title. Axe should feel heavier when throwing and retrieving. Rumble can be much improved in combat overall. Dodging should play a larger role similar to the slow motion enchantment. Perhaps add low, medium, and high blocking techniques. Allow dismemberment of limbs on at least smaller enemies to allow much greater combat variety. If an opponent uses ranged attacks, rip off his arms to render it useless. etc. Combat overall should be a little quicker in regards to controller input to movement on screen. Similar to Doom 2016. Up the responsiveness. PS5 will help immensely with this, I imagine. I can't wait to see the specs and improvements on the control side of things. We need faster response times overall. Add ability for Axe to overpenetrate targets and impale multiple enemies against any wall. Combos can be added while they are pinned. The blades should have an attack where you impale one enemy to the left or right, then another to the other side, then smash them together. This is one of many examples. There are just so many more things that can be done. Take your time with the next game. You have the engine and team. Just focus on the story and new game mechanics. It will be a much smoother ride this time, I promise. Just keep your heads up. The The best idea should always prevail no matter who thought of it. The janitor or the CEO. The best games are made by sticking to a single vision at all costs. Set pride aside and allow the truth of creative vision to rise to the surface. Have an idea box where people can submit anonymously to negate fear of judgment. Then read ideas once a week to studio and have a voting system. Add more color and fantasy environments similar to the Witch's Woods or the Elf City. It helps take the player in a magical journey which our brains are geared towards psychologically. Should have more control of the axe once thrown and when returning. Perhaps add moves where you can control the axe while it's in the air. Add 4th armor piece. Boots leg armor. This should focus on movement ability, dodge speed, distance, etc. All armor should focus on an itch. Chest defensive wrist attack waste magic. Add skills that simply unlock as you progress through the story or kill enough enemies to constantly reward the player. These can be small or huge changes such as adding 1% strength after beating a strong boss or 1% more magic after beating a witch. For larger milestones, have players unlock certain move combos that extend their length. In regards to runic attacks, I feel we should add not subtract. What I mean is we need to have a way where players can use more than one attack but not break the game. Right now we are in a situation where we have 10 plus runic attacks but the player can only use one at a time. Then after they use it, there is at least a 60-second cooldown, then they have to go into the menu to switch to a different attack. I believe an attack wheel similar to Doom could work very nicely here, but once again I still think there's a way to allow players to use these attacks more often without breaking the game. Perhaps when you do damage that refreshes your runic attacks quicker. This would promote the push-forward gameplay that God of War is known for. Give the players incentives to always be aggressive. Add bonuses like the more enemies you kill within X amount of seconds, it increases the chances that they will drop higher level loot or more items. Directly in regards to moment-to-moment combat, add a mechanic where the exact timing button presses in sync with certain animations will yield unique results. Example, as Kratos swings a heavy attack. If the player presses attack again during the very end of the attack, within a few frames, it will start a chain into a new combo. The tell for this can be a simple glow sound emanating from the axe at the moment of striking, but what if the player misses the combo window? Then they just continue attacking normally. The idea here is to positively reinforce rhythm timing of combinations of button presses. On screen it will look like a fluid dance to some slight degree, and the player will have an immense amount of pleasure satisfaction. As combat progresses with an opponent, it would increase in speed and damage, assuming the player had their timing right. The less skilled players would still enjoy the combat as usual, but the skill ceiling would be greatly increased, and thus the visual spectacle. I believe I noticed some destructible environments in the final boss. We should lean heavily into that for the next game for PS5. The options for performance and resolution should remain, targeting 4K 30 locked or 60 FPS with dynamic res eventually 64K. In general, please take the ideas that seem far-fetched and crazy, then nurture them. Far too many games play it safe, go big or go home. Corey said during interviews the backlash he received as a whole during development, and I fully understand having parallels in my own life. For instance, the head of Mimir hanging on the hip. It's genius. But most people don't even understand why. Having a seemingly human head travel with you that is visible adds a unique element many games do not have. Most of the time it's just a voice talking to the player. But here you have given us a chance to see his facial expression, and it immerses us like never before. The fantasy is believable given the nature of the world, so after a few short minutes of my brain processing there is a severed head on my hip. The situation naturally started to flow into normal gameplay, and I then began to enjoy it. As the story progressed, I wondered what he was going to say and how the situation affected him or what he knew. The father-son moment on the elevator drinking wine. Pure genius. Once again this relays to the player the psychological connection and growth that both Kratos and the boy have gone through. Kratos is literally sharing a part of his past with his son. A part he thought would be rejected and met with hate. But instead, the son unconditionally loves his father and just wants to know the truth. This is one of the only times you could say Kratos appeared happy during the entire game. He was realizing that even though he has done terrible things, he must embrace who he is and grow from it, and his son will be there along the journey accepting him for who he is. Add swimming and combat. There is just so much you can do in the water. Combos can be different depending on how quickly you tap the attack button. There should be combos where you wait until he finishes his swing to tap attack again, thus extending the combo length. Or tapping quicker would change the attack and speed. The fighting should be even more rhythmic, allowing a flow to be had with each player, like a dance. Attack animation interruptions need to be reworked big time. If you are in the middle of an attack and want to do a different attack, you should be able to. There just needs to be animations put in place to allow it. Momentum should always be preserved though. I can't stress that enough. We should truly feel the weight of not only the axe, but Kratos' body himself. As he swings or moves, he should be throwing his weight around much more so that even getting close to his body will stun smaller enemies during an attack without touching the weapon. He's a dense thick god. When he steps the ground should crack and crumble. The closest you came to personifying his weight is during some of the shield animations. He feels heavy and weighted bashing that shield. It's great. But even the Spartan rage punches and movement left a lot to be desired. It felt like lots of whiffed combos hitting the air. Here is a sage note of wisdom. You always want to code in favor of the player. This does not mean make the game easy. But, in certain instances, the circle or diameter of the hitbox of an opponent needs to be widened. Example 1. In rage mode, virtually every swing should be devastating visually and sonically to the player. When he punches, the environment needs to react. Plants being blown back, dirt flying, rocks cracking. Make the player feel like a god. To balance it, you can have less punches or less damage per punch, etc. Example 2. Runic attacks. These should code towards the player. I love Tyr's Revenge. But many times I threw it, the hammer would flat out miss, fly past the opponent, or worse, it would hit the opponent once, sit spinning in the air, doing no damage, then fall. It's instances like this where you should code the game in the favor of the player. Since the runic attacks are super abilities, they should almost always work. Unless you completely throw your axe away from your target, it should have enough tracking to almost guarantee connections. Once again, this power spike during runic attacks can be balanced by having more nuanced neutral gameplay after the aforementioned rhythm combo system. The closest thing to the rhythm combo currently is the press triangle during the glow of a precision throw to increase damage. We need to add more aspects like this where timing is key, not necessarily long strings of button combinations. Although there could be some sweet simple button combos just with the 2 attack buttons. Just mix up the timing for each, such as R1 then R2 or R1 hold then R2 or R2 then hold R1, etc. Then once you add in runics, the combos can become insane. Progression, differential reinforcement. This is a psychological term that most developers use without a firm grasp of the implications. In short, this means giving varying rewards depending on the level of difficulty completed in any given task. I noticed during New Game Plus that you have escape lag during crucial story moments or new discovered locations. This is genius. In all games, you want to make the player feel a sense of progression throughout the story, and by adding different levels of rewards for certain actions. This should be something tangible and visible for the player to see on their character to show the growth being made. Then there exists schedules of reinforcement, how often the player receives a reward. There are many schedules of reinforcement. Some common ones that should be used more often is fixed variable, fixed ratio, interval, and random schedules of reinforcement. Basically, it's all about the timing and location of the reward. If a player received a runic attack just starting the game, then that wouldn't feel rewarding. That's much too high of a reward. Luck adds that random element which should make players always want to kill an enemy or search an area. If there is even a small chance of a monumental reward, players will seek it. Boss battles, massive AoE explosion attacks are not fun to fight against. A lot of developers do this. They give an enemy a huge explosion that the player simply has to run away from, or they die. This is not fun. Having to disengage and run during a battle is not enjoyable. Instead, replace these explosions with actual attacks or new movement patterns that open up as the boss fight progresses, allowing it to stay fresh while always giving the player a sense of battle awareness, knowing the strategy will change throughout the fight. This is much better than "Oh man, here comes the crack and crumble." The closest you came to personifying his weight is during some of the shield animations. He feels heavy and weighted bashing that shield. It's great, but even the Spartan rage punches and movement left a lot to be desired. It felt like lots of whiffed combos hitting the air. Here is a sage note of wisdom. You always want to code in favor of the player. This does not mean make the game easy. But, in certain instances, the circle or diameter of the hitbox of an opponent needs to be widened. Example 1. In rage mode, virtually every swing should be devastating visually and sonically to the player. When he punches, the environment needs to react. Plants being blown back, dirt flying, rocks cracking. Make the player feel like a god. To balance it, you can have less punches or less damage per punch, etc. Example 2. Runic attacks. These should code towards the player. I love Tear's Revenge. But many times I threw with the hammer would flat out miss, fly past the opponent, or worse, it would hit the opponent once, sit spinning in the air, doing no damage, then fall. It's instances like this where you should code the game in the favor of the player. Since the runic attacks are super abilities, they should almost always work. Unless you completely throw your axe away from your target, it should have enough tracking to almost guarantee connections. Once again, this power spike during runic attacks can be balanced by having more nuanced neutral gameplay after the aforementioned rhythm combo system. The closest thing to the rhythm combo currently is the press triangle during the glow of a precision throw to increase damage. We need to add more aspects like this where timing is key, not necessarily long strings of button combinations. Although there could be some sweet simple button combos just with the 2 attack buttons. Just mix up the timing for each, such as R1 then R2 or R1 hold then R2 or R2 then hold R1, etc. Then once you add in runics, the combos can become insane. Progression, differential reinforcement. This is a psychological term that most developers use without a firm grasp of the implications. In short, this means giving varying rewards depending on the level of difficulty completed in any given task. I noticed during New Game Plus that you have escape lag during crucial story moments or new discovered locations. This is genius. In all games, you want to make the player feel a sense of progression throughout the story, and by adding different levels of rewards for certain actions. This should be something tangible and visible for the player to see on their character to show the growth being made. Then there exists schedules of reinforcement, how often the player receives a reward. There are many schedules of reinforcement. Some common ones that should be used more often is fixed variable, fixed ratio, interval, and random schedules of reinforcement. Basically, it's all about the timing and location of the reward. If a player received a runic attack just starting the game, then that wouldn't feel rewarding. That's much too high of a reward. Luck adds that random element which should make players always want to kill an enemy or search an area. If there is even a small chance of a monumental reward, players will seek it. Boss battles, massive AoE explosion attacks are not fun to fight against. A lot of developers do this. They give an enemy a huge explosion that the player simply has to run away from, or they die. This is not fun. Having to disengage and run during a battle is not enjoyable. Instead, replace these explosions with actual attacks or new movement patterns that open up as the boss fight progresses, allowing it to stay fresh while always giving the player a sense of battle awareness, knowing the strategy will change throughout the fight. This is much better than "Oh man, here comes the explosive attack. Let's just keep our distance." Instead, it should be "Here comes the underhand right sweep. I'll dodge a left, shield bash to stun." Then counter with a runic and talisman and follow it up with a rage combo. The latter scenario will always be more enjoyable than "It's time to run away or I die" during the explosion. If you want to keep them in, at least allow the player to dodge at that moment to phase shift, throw the blast or something. It always feels cheap dying from a massive AoE attack. If I die, I want it to be because I failed to execute a mechanic, block, attack, or dodge. Not because I didn't run away fast enough. I don't see the enjoyment in that. Always give the player a way out. No matter how small. It's up to them to find it and use it. Any attack should do damage. Any. We are a god. But to qualify this, it must be a small amount. The true way to defeat a boss will be the mechanics, obviously. But if the player chooses to swipe away for an hour, they should have that ability, at least for some part of the fight until the boss inevitably transforms stages. Stun and attack circles should just be removed from the game. Instead, use glow on the weapons. When an opponent is going to attack with an unbreakable attack, have their weapon glow red as opposed to a circle around it. This will look much more appealing and it will make sense to the player. If a weapon is glowing red, you don't want to get touched. It has to be a blood red to differentiate from fire. Have their heads or different body parts glow when stunned with different animations. Add new animations everywhere. 2 to 3 times the enemies. Need more variety? Increased blade grapple length. Many new moves should be added to blades. One that comes to mind would be the ability to impale 2 opponents then smash them together. Epic. Add ability to pick up enemies and throw them at each other or use them as a bat. Never underestimate the power of having an action being tied to a button hold, not press. It adds weight to the action. Add more time shift abilities in general. Perhaps to the axe itself. Make the boys now become almost everything for him. He can use the knife too, but add knives or blades to the bow. It would be unique and the combos movesets would be beautiful to witness. The bow would be his universal weapon that he used in combination with the knife. Kratos should have more momentum when he runs, starting a little bit slow while picking up papers to a massive sprint that can barrel through enemies. Momentum and speed and the change in acceleration should be much more of a focus on the next game, which will just add to the level of immersion. Add more arrows and ways to use them. Fire and ice in particular. If done correctly, combo should never end until all the opponents are defeated or you take damage. Permafrost was a good idea, expand upon it. Allow health and rage regeneration while sitting in the boat. Remember, less is more. You nailed it with the weapons. Only having 2 is perfect. But the armor and enchantments need reworks. The stat enchantments should simply be permanent for the most part while obtained through the blue flowers in the world or part of the story quest like Scap Slag and New Game Plus. That way each one can focus on magic abilities such as protective barriers and time slowing. Allow fusion of armor both with perks and look. That way there are 3 variations to 2 pieces. You can keep one of the looks of the old armor, or you can use the new fuse look. Imagine Ivaldi fused with Zeus armor. In psychology there also exists multiple terms to help teach certain behaviors. Modeling is done in games to show how to do an action. This helps the player understand mechanics. But in order to have the player generalize the action, one must incorporate then use a technique known as fading. When you fade a prompt, that means slowly taking away the signals which lead the player to the solution. In math it's similar to long versus short division. Both give the answer but long division breaks up each step. This is good to start, but after practice it's quicker and more effective to do short division. Once again, less is more. Think about Zelda. There were 3 tunics in the game, only a few swords, and 3 shields. Each of these items is burned into the memory of all gamers because of their uniqueness in both look and ability. Everyone knows what the blue water tunic does. Contrast this with something like Nier or Dark Souls. There are dozens or hundreds of weapons and pieces of armor. The player always feels a sense of buyer's remorse. They never can fully enjoy an item because they know there are potentially dozens of other items out there with higher stats. This rips away the novelty of finding a new weapon and hampers the game in multiple ways. When a player sees an item drop, they should always be excited and rush towards it instead of thinking, oh, here's another useless item. Perhaps only have 5 armor sets in the game, each one wholly unique from the rest, with insane abilities. This is what will make players talk about your armor for years to come. It must be unique. And if something is unique, that means it's rare. Once I started playing with high luck, I never wanted to change it because I loved all of the abilities that are unlocked. Getting damaged and having a flame circle appear around me is just epic. Things like this are what sets this apart. Add more abilities and unique ways to trigger them. Perhaps a certain combo will instantly refresh a runic attack, while another combo does something else.